Hi guys, welcome to this session in Microsoft Access. In this module, I want to show you how you can get SharePoint lists into an Access database or create a SharePoint list from Access. So first of all, I've got a blank database on the screen, and on the Create tab, you have, along with tables, SharePoint lists. Now, if I click on that, what you've got is a set of preset lists that you can select from, and then the option to bring in a SharePoint list that you've already got. So let me click on tasks. Now when you click on tasks, it's asking you for the SharePoint site, which I've already got, which is this. Now if I go down to that SharePoint site, basically I'm on the home area of this SharePoint site, Zulu Wars, and all I did was I copied and pasted that link into Access. So once you've got that in Access, if I come back into Access, I need to give it a name. So it's called tasks, so I'll just call it tasks. And then you could, if you want, give it a description. I don't want to, so I'll just click OK to that, and that should create the list in SharePoint. It takes a few moments, but there it is in Access, ready to go. And then you've got these two items in the navigation area there. But if I go into SharePoint, back into that, into site contents, I should have a list called tasks. Coming down, task. So there it is, that little task symbol. If I click onto that and open it up, this list. So I'll go new task, click on that, and then it gives me the boxes to fill in. So training event I'll put, give it today's date as a start and an end date as the 19th. I'm not going to fill anything else in, just save that. So I've got myself a task. Now when you come back into Access, if I come back into Access, that has not picked that up yet. What you have to do is go to External Data and click on this option, and then tick the one that you want to refresh, and then click on Refresh, and it will bring in any changes. And if I close this down, so then it's come up with that task, training. Now obviously you've got a lot of extra columns here that's coming from SharePoint that are not actually needed. Well, I don't need them. So what I'm going to do in Access is to just close this down, and what I want to do is create a query of that and just pull in the fields that I want to fill in. So if I go query design and then pull that task list in, I just want a couple of these fields to be used by me because the rest are used by SharePoint. So you've got title, I'll go for title, and then don't want status, task group, start date, yep, due date, yep, and let's have a quick look at that. Training event due date. Okay, so say that's all I want. I will leave it like that. I'm going to save this query. Let's just call it query 1 for now. And then in there, I'm going to start adding some records. So Excel, and then I'll go Access, and then I'll go Word. So I've added some dates as well. Start dates coming in. I'll just add a couple of end dates on here, like that. So you can see how this would work. In Access, I'm filling it in, or I could fill it in SharePoint. So if I come off this last record, just close that query. I've already saved it. Don't need to save the data. If I go back into SharePoint, this hasn't updated yet, but if I refresh my site, everything I typed is now appeared in the SharePoint list. If I go back into Access, so what I can do now, that was me creating a SharePoint list. I want to bring in some data from a current list. So I'm going Create, SharePoint list from SharePoint, and then it's going to ask me, I'm going to pick the same site, and then I'll just go next, and what it'll do is give me a list of all the lists, and then I want this one, products, and I want that one, my list, and then I'm just going to click OK to that, bringing those two in, and then they come in. There's products, and again you can just create a query so you get rid of these columns, or you can hide these columns, it's totally up to you. And then my list is this one, like that, nothing too technical on that. So basically, whichever way you do it, whether you create a SharePoint list in Access and then fill it in Access, it will be filled in SharePoint, and vice versa. If you fill it in SharePoint, you'll see it in Access as well. Also, if you create a SharePoint list in SharePoint, you can then bring it down into Access. Once it's in Access, you've got the full functionality of Access database. So I can click a form. Just looking at that query that I did. There's the form. Just save that. Query 1. Obviously, you'd be naming these, but for this example, I'm not going to name them. So there's a form. I could create a report on that. So if I go create, I'll just do a generic report. All the functionality of Access is available to you, even though this data is a SharePoint list. So that's all I want to talk about in this little video, how you can use SharePoint lists in Access and how you can pull SharePoint lists from Access into SharePoint. So hopefully that video was of use. Thank you for your time, and I'll catch you in the next one.